Welcome to Another Mother Runner, your best running friend in podcast form. We do all the talking, even on the uphills. I'm your host, Sarah Bowen Shea, along with special co-host Corrine Malcolm, one of the hosts of Trail Society podcast. Welcome, Corrine.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so this episode is special for numerous reasons. First, Corrine, you're my co-host. And second, we are recording in person from an Airbnb. And third, we are together because we are at TrailCon, a trail running convention, which seems a bit like an oxymoron. And we are in Palisades, Tahoe, California, sandwiched between two high-profile ultramarathons. Our guest today is Stephanie Irving, an avid trail runner who in 2012 co-founded the Wild Woman Trail Runs as one of the first all-women marathons in the U.S. Originally an avid endurance horse racer, Steph has completed more than 100 trail races. I might be off on the number, it might be even higher, across the globe. At age 64, Steph is the second oldest woman set to run the Western States Endurance Run, commonly dubbed Western States 100 or just Western States, this weekend. A mom and a grandma. Steph is also the executive director of Helping Hands Against Violence in Hood River, Oregon. But we are going to keep Steph in the waiting room because first, Corrine, I want you to tell folks a bit about yourself because, here you are coming on cold to the Another Mother Runner podcast. So, yeah, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. I feel like this is a long time in the making. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Trail Society podcast that I host with Keely Henninger and Hillary Allen. I am an avid ultra runner, a trail commentator, a running coach, a dog mom, which is very important.
Yes.
PD Dog has my heart and soul. I do a little bit of everything. I work in social impact projects with HOKA, so I run a bunch of women's trail running initiatives because my passion is to get more women into trail running broadly. So I'm in great company here today as well, but I do a little bit of everything, and that's how I like it.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so you mentioned that you were a race commentator, which I always imagine that to be both thrilling and very nerve-wracking. Is that the case?
It's maybe more than anything just exhausting.
Oh, there's an adjective.
I did all 3 days of commentary at Broken Arrow this weekend with a really good friend of mine, Martin Goffrey, who is my co-host for a lot of European races. It's high octane. It's go, go, go. You hit the intro to begin with, and all of a sudden, 6 hours later, you're done, but you're hyped. You're very, very hyped up. My brain kind of lives for all the data and all the stats, and then we're at Western States. I'll be doing commentary for roughly 20 hours straight.
Oh my goodness.
Before taking a small break and then coming back for a golden hour on the track, which is my favorite time of day. So it's exhausting, it's exciting, it's exhilarating, but it's also just a lot of fun.
Okay, so as a background for our conversation with Steph, give us some details about the Western States and why it's such a big deal.
Yeah, the Western States 100 is one of the oldest ultras in the world, over 50 years old in the U.S. It started, actually, this will be cool, as an endurance horse racer with Steph. It started as a horse race, the Tevis Cup, running the exact same course, basically, from here in Olympic Valley to the Placer track in Auburn, and then someone's like, I guess I could run it, and Western States was born. There's a really cool film out now, actually, called Raise the Bar that Hillary Yang and Carrie Hyman put out. We'll be screening it this week, which is really cool. That shares the story of the founders of the race in a lot of ways, the 2 men and 2 women who helped to really kick the race off. But it's one of the most highly competitive races in the world, which makes people really want to do it, too. So people have been putting in for years and years and years. I was fortunate to get in with only 4 tickets in the lottery, which is a little bit sacrilegious, I think. The elites can get in via golden ticket races, but there are people that put in for 7, 8, 9 years of running qualifiers every single year. For the longest time, we didn't have a pregnancy deferral policy. You could lose your tickets in the lottery and have to start all over because of it. That has since changed in a big way, but we've had a lot of attrition, particularly in the women's field over time, due to things that are just part of life in a big way. So it's a very important race in U.S. trail culture and lore for trail running, but it's also a very important race internationally in that regard. Its sister race effectively is the UTMB in Chamonix in August, but Western States is fast, hot, furious. UTMB is slow, mountainous terrain, and so it is this kind of perfect merger of 2 very different styles of 100-mile racing. But if you've ever been to Western States, you almost immediately get it. Its energy is like none other And I completely understand why you put in year after year after year to hopefully someday be one of the 369 runners.
Well, that's the thing. So I didn't know that until I got here, what a small race it is, because, I've lived in California for 8 years of my life, so I've certainly heard of it, and being, in the running world, but I had no idea it was so small.
Yeah, so they start the race through the Granite Chief Wilderness, and because we go through a wilderness area, we have a permit for the race. That is distinctly unique to U.S. racing for the most part, as opposed to European racing. And so our races are capped.
Okay.
Much smaller fields for the most part because of the landscape we're running through and our permitting processes. And so, yeah, it's right now we're set to be a 369 average, basically. So some years we might have 370, some years we might have 368. But the goal is to average and to maximize being at that 369. And so they actually instituted a wait list a couple of years ago to try to make sure we filled 369 so that the Forest Service doesn't say, oh, well, only 360 people start, so we're actually going to shorten your thing. But we run through a really beautiful wilderness area to start the race, and therefore we are capped at 369 starters.
Okay. So we've established that Western States is a tough mother of a race, which you can attest to since you've raced it several times. Am I right in that?
Yeah, so those 4 lucky tickets got me in 2018. Off the wait list in April. So I had to I'd bide my time to make sure I could run the race that I was going to get in. And then another special thing about Western States is if you finish in the top 10, that is the only way to have an automatic entry back the next year.
Wow, the top 10 is such a small sliver.
It is a small sliver, and it means that you're racing for every single spot in the elite field. And I've had some friends run incredibly fast times but finish 11th. And you don't get to come back the next year automatically. You have to race your way back in. So I finished 9th in 2018 on a really, really hot year. And then everyone PR'd in 2019 on a really cool year, except for me. I ran the exact same time to the minute and finished 10th. And then ultimately opted not to come back for the 2020 race, which became the 2021 race, because I needed a break to run other things. But yeah, that's the only way you get back in. I've run it twice. It's incredible. It's incredibly hard, hot or cold. And you just take the conditions you have for the day.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have to ask then, what's the forecast for this weekend?
Cool. Really cool. Which I'm sure people are very excited. Maybe even cold in the high country.
Okay, well, it's time to hear from the brands who support this content. Corrine and I will welcome Steph Irving when we return. Well, Steph, thanks for making time for us. We know you are a busy woman this week.
I am, but it's really wonderful to be here chatting with you guys.
On another Mother Runner podcast, I hear the first question is asking the guest about their running background. Steph, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into running?
Well, I've been active all my life. I probably run 5Ks and 10Ks all my life. But really, I started running marathons. Well, I'll back up. I did my first marathon when I was about 20, but completely off the couch, and finished and was sore for 2 weeks and decided the next time I run a marathon, I'm going to be well trained. So cut to 40. I started running marathons 40 to 50 and did my first ultra at 50. So that was kind of my first venture into the ultra world. And so that's where I started.
Wow, that's amazing. Tell us a little bit about that first ultra at age 50. That's incredible.
Well, actually, because I had been running marathons and road marathons, and my last road marathon that I ran, I felt like I shot my knees and my hips. I thought, I'm never going to run again. I remember finishing that marathon. It was in Idaho somewhere, and on pavement. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was like late 40s, and I thought, I'm never going to run again. I can't believe I must have just killed my body, running too many marathons. And but then a friend of mine and I just somehow hopped into a trail run. It was the Timothy Lake one. That when I went to Timothy Lake. It was a trail marathon, and we finished that, and we realized we weren't sore. Our bodies felt great. Our hips and knees weren't sore like after the road marathons, and I realized I haven't shot my body that I could. So we decided to, could we do another 5 miles? And so we chose the Orcas 50K, thinking, oh, it's not on an island. It can't be too hard, as our first 50K, and it. As many of you know, it's a really hard.
Really?
It's a really hard. You go up Mount Constitution, thank you, multiple times in different ways, and it took us forever, but we finished, and we were humbled because we were so used to being like a 4-hour marathoner. Adding 4 miles, I think we were at that day we were like an 8-hour 50K or something. How could that be that long with only 5 miles more? But it just we realized the nature of it, and but we were hooked at that point, and then just kept running ultras.
Yeah.
Nice. So that progresses a bit to you running longer and longer. Obviously, to get into Western States, you've got to run qualifiers year after year. You're in on a special bib this year, which is for athletes that are 60 plus, I believe. But you still have been in the lottery for a long, long time. Can you tell us a little bit about the Western States journey broadly of getting in that lottery year after year? So
when I started putting my name in the lottery, it was one of those, if you skipped a year, you went back to the beginning, like you mentioned earlier. COVID was the year they made that change that you just had to qualify every year before you made it, but you didn't lose your tickets. But when I started, you lost your ticket if you didn't, so you had to qualify every year. I think I ran a Zion 100K and realized whatever my first qualifier run, I realized, this is a Western States qualifier. Well, I might as well just put my name in the hat. And I jokingly said, it might take me 10 years to get in, but I sort of threw my name in the hat. But I have to say, the 10-year journey has been amazing. And I know there are a few lucky folk that get in on the 1 ticket or the 4 tickets, right? But I'm so, in retrospect, I'm so happy that it took me 10 years, 9 years of entering, plus then COVID, the skip year. So it's been 10 years since I started trying to get into Western States, and I faithfully, have qualified every year. It's been a wonderful journey. Black Canyon has been one of my favorite qualifiers, the 100K there. It's just a fabulous race. UTMB and CCC and some others too, which have been, the journey has kind of, I think I would have just kept doing this regardless, even if there weren't a Western States, but because of it, it kind of kept upping my game. And so, I, somehow, started doing 100Ks. I love 100Ks. It's a great distance. Done, I don't know, over 15 of them. But then worked my way up to hundreds, loved them. And I just found myself here.
It is a journey. Like, we've had a number of athletes like that where it's like they had kids during that process and then they came back and got more tickets. Or I love this journey too, where it's like you actually, I think I'm just realizing this, like your son is running the big loop at UTMB this year, so you actually beat Alex to getting UTMB done, which is very cool too.
Yes. Well, actually, I did run UTMB before my running son has run it. However, we had an amazing, so I think it was 2024. I actually don't remember the year. So I ran 2 CCCs and 1 UTMB, and my second CCC, because I'd qualified through Canyons and just got an automatic entry into it, so I said, well, might as well run it again. Alex ran it also, and I don't know, but and we never dug into this, but I was like, I think we were probably the only mother-son team running CCC that year. Not that we were running together. He was a half a day ahead of me. But it was really special to be running on the same course as my son when we did that.
Of course.
So
It's really cool.
Yeah. I have very competitive sons. I have another son who, when I told them I was running my first 50K, was at 50, was my first 50K. I was like, I'm going to celebrate. My other son was just turning 18 a few months before that. He decided he was going to run his first 50K at 18, goodness. 3 months before I ran. So he even reminded me the other day, Mom, I beat you to your first 50K. But it was wonderful. So it's been fun to share the journey in a very different way with both those kids. Oh, I have to tell you a story I've been thinking about. When I was running marathons and my kids were in, I don't know, middle school, high school, sort of when I was in my marathon phase. And my husband was a pilot, so he was gone a lot. So I was kind of single momming it once in a while. And they loved running 5Ks and 10Ks. They would come with me. But one of my marathons, I think it was a Eugene marathon, I was trying to qualify for Boston. And I had the kids that, so I brought them to, so I signed them up. I can't remember exactly which marathon it was, but I kind of think it was the Eugene. One of the marathons I went to had like a 10K edition that started like a couple hours after the marathon started. So I kind of used it as childcare. So I brought my kids to the marathon. Betsy and I, my friend Betsy and I, run them, start at whatever time it was, 6 a.m. or whatever time it was for the marathon. And told the kids, you hang out here, and at 8 o'clock your run will start. and so they did. They ran their 10K. I went out and ran my 4-hour marathon. They obviously finished their 10K a few hours before I did. And I got back to the finish line. They were both there having a great time. They're like, Mom, there's all this free food. And they had been back and forth to the aid station table like a million times in the 2 hours that they were waiting for me. It was just the funniest thing. And I remember what was I thinking as a mom? But
the volunteers must have kind of
they
semi-adopted
him.
Yes.
That. Yeah, they're like, but
yeah.
It was funny and it was great. And anyway, so
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well-behaved sons, though, that they didn't just like scamper away.
No, they were fine.
Yeah.
They're old enough, I'm sure, at that point.
Yeah. So how has your running changed from your 50s now into your 60s? I mean, I don't know. To me, 60 has felt like a big cliff.
Yeah. I don't think about numbers. I went through menopause really early, like in my 40s. And so, it's been the same, all the way through. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know. I just keep moving. I'm sure someday, I don't know. I mean, I don't think about it as that mental block. I hear too many people, women especially, like that say, in their 40s, oh yeah, I used to run, but, now my hips. And it's like, I really feel passionate about just keep moving, keeping your body moving, moving forward. So, whether you're walking, running, biking, whatever, just keep your body moving. I know I've been really fortunate. I also have a really good foundation of multi-sports. I rode in high school, rode crew, and I've horseback ridden, which I really believe, it's more looking back on my life that, when you ride, you're kind of squeezed, you got your abductor. So my knees, I feel like are really good because I've sort of strengthened them all around. Anyways, I don't know. I mean, I know sometimes I'm out there and running and, some, 30-year-old runs by me and I think, okay, I'm double her age, but, and I'm okay with that. But for some reason, I've been very fortunate. I was running Black Canyon last year, or whenever the last time I ran it was, as a qualifier. And, I've run it 6 times in the past 8 years. And so I know the course very well. And I've kind of, sometimes I'm a little slower, sometimes a little faster, depending on course. And there was that snow year a couple of years ago, and which made it a lot harder because you have like 8 inches of mud on your shoes for the first 10 miles. And I finished in qualifying time for Western States, but by like 3 minutes. It was like, and I was, at the time I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just getting that much older. Like, what if I can't qualify for Western States anymore? And I'm like, well, I'm going to keep trying as long as I can, So that was the snow year, and I just barely. So the next year I went back to run it, and I'm thinking, I'm a year older. I only qualified by a couple minutes last year. Am I going to do this? But I'm going to try. Keep putting my name in the hat. And I finished, and I PR'd by an hour.
Oh, get out.
Over my entire 8 years having run that Black Canyon. And I have to say, I was so proud of that moment. Like, I hadn't really looked at my watch, and I realized, oh my God, like I was nervous about even finishing it, and it was like my best time ever.
Wow.
And so I don't know what I did differently. I think I've been smarter at aid stations. I think I've fueled a little bit better, all the good things that you're supposed to. But so it's kind of weird to I have no idea what every race is going to bring, but it was kind of a fun surprise.
Yeah,
wow.
I remember writing an article a couple of years ago about the aging athlete, and I was really frustrated because every single scientific paper I looked at always uses the term like the decline of age. And I was like, well, that's like the most negative way we could frame this. And so
don't even think about that as decline of age, right? Just think, I don't know, you think about yourself as, just keep thinking about it yourself as a runner. Just forget the number that, I mean, I feel young when my co-directors of Wild Women are in their 30s and 40s, and I feel like I'm their peers, And okay, they might think I'm a lot older, but you just have to. It's sort of, there is such a mind game. We all think about it even as we're running on the trail. If you start thinking about how hard this is and how hot it is, and like, what the heck am I doing out there? You spiral down. But if you start thinking about, oh my God, look at this view, and like, I get to do this, and like, you can spiral your mind up. Mm-hmm. And that's when you're running, but think about in life also, Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think anything's had to change over the last 10 years of your running? It sounds like fueling has probably gotten a little bit better, though I think that's like across the board. I think all of us
Everybody have
gotten a little bit better at fueling, so maybe that's not age related. Being smarter at aid stations, that's experience. Mm-hmm. Also a very critical part of ultra running that gets overlooked a lot. Mm-hmm. But what about something like recovery? Has anything changed there as far as getting up and after it?
That's a really great question, because I am a true believer in recovery, and especially at my age. And I do think, I listen to the SWAT podcast all the time, and, I love David and Megan Roach. However, all their talk I believe, is really directed to 30 and 40-year-olds. Mm. And nobody is doing the research on we healthy 60-year-olds. And they joke about it time. Well, I hope when I'm 60, I'm still doing whatever. And I just lost your question. But I had a great answer to it. Recovery, yes, thank you. Okay, that's part of the aging,
spiraling down.
Yeah. So, but the recovery is really important, and I believe I need more than 1 day a week. No, I do recover pretty fast. I can run a marathon, or an ultra on a Saturday, and when I walk into work on Monday, I'm a little sore, but by Tuesday I'm feeling great again. So it's like mine is like a 3-day feeling great.
Wow.
The airplane on Sunday, and those hobbling into work a little bit, and then by Tuesday I'm doing my yoga and having a great time and feeling like I could go for a little 5-mile run or something. So, but the cover, and even in training, I've spent 30 years building a really good base, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I've run over 100 ultras in one sense or another. And I feel like everybody asks me, like, what's my training plan? I just go out and run and have fun. Like, I actually I know this might be counterintuitive, and some coaches out there are probably cringing, but I just like to go out and run. I run with my friend Betsy all the time, and we'll just chat for hours. And I'll, or I do an adventure. I might do a point to point. I might go around Mount Hood, or I might go around, whatever. Just do sort of something fun. And I push myself for the distances. I don't go that fast. I throw in some. I try to go hard up the hills once in a while and push myself. I've never had a coach, and I just kind of exercise by feel. I mean, my friend Betsy she's doing her 4th or maybe even 5th Ironman after 60 right now. She's going to Switzerland and doing that. And so occasionally I'll join her on a 50-mile bike ride or something. I'm not a biker, but I'll just go. But I feel like continuing moving your body in multiple different ways keeps us healthy. And I think that maybe just doing the one thing, you could break down your body, but I think I've always been sort of I cross-country ski in the wintertime, and I don't fret about the details. I just keep myself moving. Mm-hmm. I guess that's what it is.
Wow. All right, it's time for another brief break. Stick around for more.
When you showed up today, you showed up in some personal race swag. Mm-hmm. You co-founded what is the Wild Women Marathon and 50K, right?
And 50K.
And 50K. Started back in 2012. Can you tell us a little bit about founding that event, or mm-hmm. co-founding that event, and also co-founding a women's only event?
Right. I founded it with my friend Betsy Scott. We were runners. We ran all the marathons in our 40s and started running ultras in our 50s together. And so she's been my partner for years of running. And I also happen to live in an area at the base of Mount Adams that fortunately is underutilized trail-wise. I developed a lot of the trails for, I used to be an endurance rider, it was mentioned earlier, and so we put on the Mount Adams endurance race. It was a horse race, and developed about 100 miles of trails there. when I traded in my horse for my Hokas, Betsy and I started running more together, and we went to a women's half marathon road race in Vancouver at one point and had a great time. And we just noticed there was a different feel to an all women's race. And so we started talking about, well, maybe we should do an all women's race. Maybe we should do it on our trails. And maybe we should put a trail run on. And I literally remember sitting around the dinner table with a few other friends of ours, kind of brainstorming this idea of like, we're thinking of doing an all women's trail run. And then we said, but what about making it a weekend? And then we're like, one of my friends at the table was a yoga instructor. She goes, well, I could do some yoga during it. And this is before, this is a long time ago. And I'm like, oh, that'd be great. Maybe we would have we could do some yoga and run. And then another friend was like, wait, this sounds like and camp out and have good food. And this other friend who wasn't a runner, and she was like, oh, that sounds so much fun, but I can't run. At the time, we were just thinking of marathon because all we had run at that time was marathon. So it started as the Wild Woman Marathon. And she was like, I really want to do it, but could you do a relay or something? And which then sure, So for those women who couldn't run a marathon, suddenly we created the relay, which allowed it became kind of the entry-level drug for trail runners because what would happen is the women would come to do the relay and bring their friends, and each of them could do 5 or 6 or 7 miles, whatever their leg was, and they loved it, and they loved it so much that the next year they would come back and they'd have a 2-person team because they'd each do 2. Anyways, it evolved. This year, 14 years later, was our biggest. The second year after we started, we added the 50K because Betsy and I had started running 50Ks, and we thought, well, we got to turn this into an ultra. And this year we had over 450 women sign up, and we had about 110 50K women only. It was our biggest 50K years. And it was been really fun to watch that evolution of go from, our biggest category was always the relay marathon. And then now one of our biggest categories is 50K. And it's been part of that graduation of people return to our Wild Women Trail Runs weekend over and over and over. And then also more and more women getting into trail running. So it's been a really fun to watch that transition. Yeah.
So you mentioned that women's only half marathon in Vancouver. I think I live in Portland. I used to work that expo a lot.
Okay.
And I've been to a lot of all women's races in my Another Mother Runner years. And there is something distinctly different about the vibe, and it's wonderful. So could you talk about that and why you feel it's important to have women's only spaces in running?
Yeah, because we just started it. Again, we kind of just we just sort of thought this would be fun, And again, we've never been sponsored by anybody. We've always been just this small weekend event, and so I have 2 sons, as we talked about earlier, and I have a lovely husband. We are not anti-men. We love men, right? And in fact, some of the questions we often get, can I bring my husband? It's of course, it's great. They just can't run, And so it's become this really supportive. We've had so many women they're kind of intimidated by the trail. You run an ultra run like the Broken. There's just a lot of testosterone. You get kind of intimidated, as you notice on the start line of so many races. Women never go up front. I've been a big advocate in the past, to go up as far as possible. Even though I am not a front runner, I don't interfere with the elites, but I really do try to kind of help women kind of move up front in the start line. They feel comfortable, they feel safe, they feel supported, and we for the Wild Women Trail Runs, we don't have a specific cutoff, so they don't feel, a lot of people, they don't know if they're going to make that 50K. Are they going to make the cutoff? We support them all the way through and let them finish in whatever time they can. And the trail is extremely well marked, so they're not going to get lost. And it's just it's just a supportive environment. They can also then They come with their girlfriends, they hang out, they have the time. Sometimes they bring their families, sometimes they leave their families at home. Whatever they need. And so it becomes this time to rejuvenate. And you do it by running, but you also do it by eating with and hanging around with your girlfriends. We have speakers that came. Rachel Enterkin came this year, and we have some educational pieces in the afternoon on Saturdays. So it's a really supportive event.
Nice.
Yeah.
So great.
It's super cool. I love that dynamic of like people can, leave the family at home or bring it with. I was just like chuckling to myself thinking about like the Paxson clan, a family that you and I are both very close with, of like Sarah Paxson and actually Emmy Paxson running now, but like Spencer and Ollie and Sawyer being there to, cheer on their mom is also this very cool environment that I don't think women are oftentimes set up for.
It is
super special.
Because so many times it's the woman who is supporting their spouse, which is lovely too. But this is really nice to see the tables change, and they love it. The men love it. That they love seeing their wife or girlfriend or friend kind of push their limits. It's really, I mean, so after the first couple of years, I think at one point my son Alex was on a podcast and he was asked, so your mom has 2 kids, but she puts on an all women's run. She has 2 boys, but she puts on an all women's run. Why would she do that? But I think they even recognize the importance of it because they've been out at the aid stations. They've been manning a few of the aid stations or supporting us in one way or another, and they totally get it. My brother comes up every year with his wife, and he runs it, or she runs it, but he's always in support. And every single man in my family that I've talked to, I thought, early on, it's like, well, should we open this up to men? Should we make it up? And they're all like, no, there is a magic to this race. There is a magic to it all. And everyone who's been to trail runs, but just notice the difference that it just has a very supportive, I think it's just rejuvenating. So, I mean, I've never had, I've never written a race director a thank you note before. We have gotten so many thank you notes. It makes me think I should write race directors thank you notes. But like we get women writing like these long, beautiful thank you notes about how it's like either changed their life or they really needed it. It was a moment in their life that they just needed to leave their kids at home and just hang out, or just that time to just refresh themselves. So. And then on the goodness about running a trail run. You know how we all feel after we go for a long run anyways. You just always feel better too. So.
You need to collect some of those thank you notes and do something with
we
them.
Do.
Share them in some way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So I guess I would like, in your reflection from last weekend, you're fresh off of that, and then you traveled here to be with us at TrailCon and get ready for Western States. So it's a bit of a whirlwind, but I'm wondering if you can share some of the highlights from last weekend's Wild Women Marathon.
Well, it was our first time that we actually turned it into a 2-day run. So we had the 50K and the marathon and the relay on Saturday, and we moved the half marathon to a Sunday for multiple reasons. And what I noticed was that even the half marathon on Sunday, some people had left because they'd finished their run, but a lot of people stayed, and it just had this. It was calm. It was lovely. It was actually just a nice wrap up to the whole weekend. The highlights were also, Rachel came and talked on Friday night, so that was super special, and we loved hearing her stories.
Tell folks who Rachel is.
Rachel Enterkin. Rachel Enterkin. Sorry, it's like Courtney. Don't you just know who Courtney is? Rachel Enterkin is a trail runner. She has won the Cocodona 250 3 times, and most recently this year she won it overall.
Oh yes, okay.
And broke the record, and has kind of shot into trail running fame.
Yeah.
She has been a friend of my son's for a while, so we knew her, and she came last year and talked to Wild Women and loved it, and then this year she graciously returned again, even though her schedule must be off the charts.
Big bananas, yeah.
But we super appreciate her being there, and yeah, so she came and shared some of her stories and wisdom with our trail runners, and it's really interesting to see because a lot of, as I mentioned before, a lot of the women who run at the Wild Women Trail Runs, many of them doing their first 50K or their first trail marathon or even their first trail run as the relay. And so juxtaposing this incredibly experienced, talented young woman with she gave them so much joy and energy. Oh my gosh. So this one woman, they knew she was coming, right? But this one woman, she came up to me and she had this pile of tattoos, the stick-on kind of tattoos, temporary tattoos, yeah. Mm-hmm. And she's handing them out to people. And she handed me one, and I looked at it, and it said, "Why not you?" And that's become kind of Rachel's mantra, maybe, because of her story of Cocodona. And it was so sweet. So we had so many women sticking on Rachel's "Why not you" tattoo, and then at later on that day, I gave it to Rachel. I said, I told her the story and I gave her one, and she was so touched. She goes, it's interesting. Like you just don't know what you say or do sometimes, and how it just ripples through the country, or through, and really how there were so many women who did finish their first 50K that really, knew, or sort of got confidence from her that, hey, why not? Yeah.
I have to ask, what's the average age, would you say, of the women who do your race?
I think it's about, it's in the 30 to 40s. However, it was very interesting to see. It's such an amazing, diverse group, especially this year. All shapes and sizes and ages. I know there were a number of 60-plus-year-olds also, because they really enjoyed not being intimidated by, we didn't have strict cutoffs. But there were also, we had 20 women under 18 run it too.
Wow.
And so we had the whole span. We actually offered a free entry to anyone under 18 to encourage women to.
That's lovely. All right, so I have a question for both of you. So you switch into your guest hat there, Corrine. So what advice do you have for newbie trail runners, especially gals who might be eyeing their first trail race?
I think I like to say to just go do it. That people are feeling like they're not ready. I told you I've never had a coach. People, many, many, many women these days have coaches. I think most people do, but nobody had a coach when I was 40 and 50. And I think they feel like, I haven't mastered the training. I haven't finished. And it's like, you know what? You've gotten this far. Give it a try. Just step onto that trail and see what you can do. And I always tell them, walk if you have to. I mean, we all walk, right? But I think, from the road running world, you're like, you don't walk, right? But, if you get tired, just walk. And then you feel better. I think just stepping onto that trail and maybe, try one that's not, Broken Arrow, that's not straight up. Try one that's that's a little less intimidating anyways. Look at the course and find something. But to have everybody feels like they want to be exactly ready. Well, like, when are we ever ready to really have kids? When are you ever ready to get married or buy a house or a car? But you just do it, and suddenly you wonder why it took you so long to do that. And I think it's the same with trail running. I remember my first 100K. I'd only run I'd run some 50Ks, and we were curious, but every time you step up a distance, you think, oh my God, I could never run farther than that, right? I mean, I remember running a marathon and thinking, how can anyone ever run 5 miles more? And then suddenly you find yourself in a 50K and you finish. And you run a bunch of 50Ks for a while and you think, yeah, but I could never run double that, right? And then you run the next 100K and you do it. But every time it's sort of like, so you get a good foundation on you, and then just try it. What's the worst going to happen? You won't finish, but you will most likely if you know that you're just going to. A lot of it's mindset, So I got into Cocodona a month before Cocodona. It was 2 years ago. It was not last year. It was the 1 year before that. 2025.
4.
Right. I don't know, one of those years I got into Cocodona. But it was a month before it, literally I was on the wait list. I was like 600th on the wait list. And I thought, I'm never going to get in. And then like 3 weeks or maybe a month beforehand, I got the email saying, you're in if you want to. Like, what? And I called my sister-in-law and said, oh my God, I got into Cocodona. And she goes, I'm not working right now. I'm going to be your crew chief. You have to do it. I'm like, it's like 3 weeks away. Like, how do you even, she goes, you've trained all your life for this, you can do it. And I'm like, and I realized like, if you train for 100, I mean, then you might as well, you've trained for a 250 or somehow. and I did, and it's just like stepping into that unknown is kind of cool. It's really fun. It's like, so I stepped into the known. Yes, I'd run a number of hundreds, and I knew I was trained up to that point. But having the confidence that Noreen gave me the confidence because she said, I'm going to be there for you. And then, just kind of giving it a try. And I didn't know. It just kind of went day to day to day. But I think that's like, you just have to you have to make that first jump.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you have to say yes.
You have to say yes. Yeah.
And I think it's this idea of like going before you're ready. A lot of people, I think particularly women, we want to be perfect. We want to be overqualified. We see it in the business world. I don't know how many guys, if the job application says must be proficient in Microsoft Office. It's like, well, I've opened Excel if you're a guy. And then my friends are like, well, I have a master's degree in, this. And it's like, am I qualified?
Right.
Type of thing. And it's like, oh, you're overqualified. Like, please do this thing. I think trail running and ultra running has that same quality where so many of us are afraid of failing. That's like, what's the worst that can happen? And so there's also an interesting stat where if we look at who doesn't finish a race, women very rarely DNF because something hurts or we just can't go on. We get timed out oftentimes in longer races. So actually wild women having these like very generous cutoff times or no cutoff times is a great way to bring women in, because then you give them the open door and opportunity to finish it,
right?
Kind of no
and
matter
feel
what.
Accomplished,
yeah, and have that sense of accomplishment. And so it's not that you can't do it, but it's this idea of like, go before you're ready, believe in yourself, take that shot, but also like, yeah, welcome. It's not that we walk when we're tired, even. It's we walk because the terrain dictates it. I joke that I am a very competent walker who's okay at running. Like, I'm really good at walking. And so I do think that is such a beautiful component of trail running too, is that you don't have to run every step. You don't have to hit this perfect mile split, this perfect average running pace. It's really about the experience and going from point A to point B, which I think that's my biggest thing with like the barriers of trail running is, some of it is time. Women also have this, even though society is changing and, my husband can load the dishwasher really well. It's this idea of, it's really hard, I think, still for women to say, I'm going to use my free time to pursue this thing that is just for me. That is very hard for a lot of people. And I think we're working on changing it. But these are all the pieces of like demystifying trail running, making it feel like it's possible to finish and possible to give yourself that time. And if we can do both those things, I think, we can have 1,000 people come to Wild Woman. Yeah. I don't know if we can feed 1,000 people, but
fit 1,000 people. We did cap out this year, so but it was I wish we could. But
we'll get you a wait list.
There you go. Okay. But I truly believe that, and it is interesting the difference, because I do think that women feel like they need to be overqualified, overprepared, over whatever, and I see that in people talking about training plans, and I'm not poo-pooing training plans. You need a plan, but at the same time, it's okay if you miss one thing or whatever, and you are going to be okay. And I have actually, when people have come up to register at Wild Woman, I have actually encouraged sometimes, they were like, I'm not finished my plan, I should down it. And I say, no, keep trying.
All right, so Corrine, you talked earlier about how fueling has really changed and that people understand better, not fully, the importance of fueling. So I'd love if each of you could talk about how you fuel for ultras.
Yeah, I can kick this off. I think it's changed a lot since I even got into ultra running a decade ago. This idea, at that point in time, when we thought we were doing really good at like 40 to 60 grams of carbs and drinking to thirst. And that's still a lot of food. It's like 240 calories going down. That's several gels. That's a lot of drink mix. But we've recognized that that's kind of like maybe the floor of what's possible, not the ceiling. And people are definitely pushing well beyond that. For sure. They're 100, 120 grams of carbs. I personally cannot do that. My stomach would explode and I'd be in the bushes more than on the trail. So you do have to experiment and play with it, and practice it is a big deal. And I think my biggest thing beyond fueling on the run is actually just like, I feel like we've made such great strides in the last 5 years, the last 10 years of just convincing all athletes, but women in particular, to fuel enough always, to fuel their body consistently throughout the day, to not eat less on your rest day, to not skip the gel when you're only 20 minutes from the trail if you were supposed to eat a gel on that 30-minute mark, because you're going to be back to your car. It's like we used to dig ourselves holes all the time, and it was really the like luckiest of us that made it through, that didn't end up with relative energy deficiency, that didn't end up with menstrual irregularity or, ample stress fractures. It was like, you got lucky, I think, if you escaped that time period. And so I do think the biggest thing is not just like, oh, we need this many carbs per hour and this much hydration, and more, it's people are actually fueling themselves and realizing that you don't have to earn your food. You don't have to earn that snack, that treat, whatever it is. It's about nourishing yourself and taking care of yourself and loving yourself. And that comes from, I think, fueling yourself all the time and not ever, having these restrictions placed on you. Because I think that historically, I was raised not by an almond mom, but by an almond dad, for sure. We had whole grains, brown rice, low fat. Like that was definitely a 90s household that I personally grew up in. And I've watched a lot of friends internalize that era. That was definitely like from their parents, and had to change a lot in order to make running sustainable. So I think that's the biggest thing, is not so much our scientific glucose to fructose ratios and, the perfect hydrogels. And it's a lot more about actually just fueling yourself all the time and not hating yourself for needing to eat.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. And Steph?
I eat before I'm hungry and drink before I'm thirsty. And I try to continue to do that. I'm not scientific about it. I don't count my gels, but I do try to eat as many as possible. It's very difficult for me to eat gels, after like mile 60. So I try to front load as much as possible. I drink, so I often will drink my carbs. My throat gets dry. Kind of towards the last half of a race usually, so I find myself, soups and some, so that second half of the race I'm doing as much drinking as I possibly can.
All right, well, I tell you, you got me thinking I need to start thinking about Wild Woman. I want to be out there and a part of it, yeah. So thank you so much for making time for us, and we wish you all the best this weekend. And Corrine, lovely hosting with you.
I had so much fun.
You make good eye contact, too. Yeah. All right, folks. Thanks for listening. This podcast is a production of Another Mother Runner and Feisty Media. For more on Feisty and our other podcasts, events, workshops, and Feisty Fest this September, visit feisty.co. And that is the E before the I, folks. It is feisty.co.